Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. Here's tonight's agenda. We'll go ahead and if you want to look this over real quick, tonight's main presentation is titled "How to Advocate for our Incarcerated Loved Ones in Utah's Prison." And our co-founder Molly Prince and director Amanda Bixman and Karen Thompson will be jumping in if they don't lose their voices first, because we're all fighting bugs right now. Afterward, we'll open the floor for discussion and hopefully give folks that have joined the call tonight, at least on the Zoom call, will be able to have the opportunity to ask questions later or share your experiences. And then we'll conclude with a save the date announcement for our February meeting coming up. And please feel free to use the Zoom chat to post questions or thoughts throughout the meeting, and then we'll address as many of them as we can. And other UPAN folks, if you can help me monitor the chat as well, that would be great. So Amanda and Molly, I made you co-hosts, so you should have seen a pop-up come up on your screen there. Okay, and we'll go ahead and get running. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Utah Prisoner Advocates January meeting, first meeting of 2026. I hope you're all well. Hopefully not fighting the flu. We're grateful to have you here tonight as we come together and hopefully learn and share and advocate for our incarcerated loved ones. For those who are joining us for the first time, thank you for taking the steps to be here. My name is, again, Shane Severson. I'll be helping facilitate tonight's discussion. So before we dive into today's agenda, I want to take a moment to acknowledge a few housekeeping matters. Firstly, please note that the session is being recorded and will be available on our Facebook and YouTube channel shortly after the presentation concludes. That ensures that those of us who couldn't join us tonight, they can catch up later. And then to make the meeting as interactive as possible, we encourage those of you that are on the Zoom call with us to participate by asking respectful questions or commenting at the appropriate times. Uh, you can use the raise hand button for if you're on a mobile device. Sometimes the buttons will hide by default, so sometimes you got to tap your screen. So if you're not seeing a button, you just try tapping your screen and see if it comes up for you. You may also post any questions for our guest speaker, our UPAN directors during the Zoom chat. Again, we'll do our best to try to address them at the appropriate times. And then also, for the courtesy of all participants, if you could kindly reminder to try to mute yourself when you're not speaking, and then that'll help to keep any background noise to a minimum. I can unmute you or mute you from my end, but just kind of be aware of that. And also, if you have your video on, just be aware if you've got your video on, like, don't pick your nose or no, I'm just kidding. But for those of you unable to attend the live session, the entire meeting again will be available live on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Utah Prisoner/videos or at utahprisoneradvocate.org. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and begin our introductions, dive into tonight's agenda. We hope it's packed with valuable information to help you navigate the prison system and advocate more effectively. So we know that it can be hard to keep track of all those resources, especially those URLs that I just spouted off to you, and the links over time. So what we've done is we've created this single, easy to remember URL, our UPAN link tree. And so by visiting this link, you'll find that all of our important resources are now listed in one place, where you can find our website, our social media pages, our newsletters, etc. Just kind of think of it as your advocacy toolkit, all in one convenient location. If you haven't already, you can bookmark the single link, and it is linktree.ee. I think if you actually put linktree.com/Utah Prisoner, it'll redirect, it'll work as well. But the actual, that's not a typo, it's linktr.ee/Utah Prisoner. So we hope you'll visit us there. Those links are always kept up to date as well. For the benefit of those of you that are new or unfamiliar with UPAN, I just like to give a little bit of background about who we are. UPAN's a 501c3 nonprofit. We're all volunteer grassroots organization, and we're dedicated to advocating for meaningful change within the Utah's criminal justice system. Our mission is to promote reform, provide support to incarcerated individuals and their families, such as yourselves, and work towards a more just and humane prison system. We were actually founded in 2013 by individuals deeply passionate about justice, many of whom have personal experiences with the criminal justice system. UPAN's committed to amplifying the voices of those who are often marginalized and overlooked. We believe in dignity and the worth of every person, including those who are incarcerated, and we work tirelessly to advocate for their rights and well-being. So through education, outreach, collaboration, and with community partners, we address issues like prison conditions, access to healthcare and mental health services, rehabilitation and reentry programs, and the impact of mass incarceration on families and communities. We do this in four main ways, namely education. We host monthly support meetings and send out newsletters to keep the public informed about important issues. We keep dialogue. We engage in open discussions with Utah Department of Corrections and county jail administrators to advocate for change and address concerns. Legislative advocacy, we train constituents such as yourselves how to work with lawmakers to push for policies that promote fairness and accountability in the criminal justice system. We are not a lobbying group, so we don't actually go up to the Hill and lobby per se, but we try to educate you so that you know how to go to your representatives and talk about what's important to you. Community engagement, we host guest speakers, form coalitions with like-minded organizations, and maintain a network of helpful resources. So the network part is made up of volunteers, criminal justice advocates, industry professionals, expert advisors, coalition organizations, formerly incarcerated individuals, and over 2,500 Utah families of the incarcerated. And we continue to grow every year. At the core of our work are the stories and experiences of incarcerated individuals and their families. So by listening to their voices and working together, we believe that we can create meaningful change and create a more equitable and compassionate society. Whether you're a longtime supporter or new to our cause, we invite you to join us in making a difference. If you'd like to learn more or get involved, please visit us online. I've listed the UPAN website. Again, all of these are on the link tree as well, but utahprisoneradvocate.org is our main website. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/UtahPrisoner. And then in addition to the main Facebook page, we have two groups. These are private groups. One is the UPAN Family Support Group. So this group is just for families. And so in between these meetings, we think it's important that you have regular dialogue, be able to connect with other families, people that are going through the same thing that you are, seek advice, maybe even emotional support, looking for resources. Our UPAN directors are on there all the time, pretty much every day. We've got moderators in there to answer questions. So if you're a family member, you have to answer questions and qualify to get into the group. But if you're a family member and just looking for support, looking for answers, I highly encourage you to get on our family support group. You can find us at facebook.com/groups/UPAN Family Support. Again, you can find that link on our link tree or go to our website. Links are everywhere. The second group is the UPAN Volunteers and Committees Working Group. So a lot of times we do these monthly meetings and we try to keep the topics relevant based on what we're hearing from the community wants to learn about. But if there's some things that we're not addressing and you want to learn more about, maybe even start up your own committee within UPAN, work with the UPAN directors, maybe network with other volunteers. This is a great working group to talk amongst each other, find each other in the group, and kind of connect with other like-minded individuals. Now let me introduce our dedicated team of UPAN directors and volunteers. Each person here plays a critical role in making UPAN a reliable and effective resource for families like yours. From addressing the medical and mental health concerns to policy advocacy, programming, reentry resources, and more, our team brings expertise and passion to everything that we do. All their names are listed on the slide, so feel free to reach out if you have questions or need support in a specific area. We're all here to help. Our contact emails, we have a main contact email, which is just contact@utahprisoneradvocate.org. That goes to our general mailbox. If you have a medical related question, you can also email our med team directly. We have several volunteer nurses, and Molly is also a licensed clinical social worker. For that side of things, you can email us there at medteam@utahprisoneradvocate.org for medical inquiries. Again, we don't provide legal or medical advice. but we can help direct you to the appropriate resource. Our UPAN directors also have direct emails from which they'll respond when replying to your questions. So as I mentioned earlier, UPAN's entirely volunteer run, so our work wouldn't be possible without the support of these volunteers. If you're interested in volunteering, please reach out by sending an introduction to our volunteer coordinator at volunteer@utahprisoneradvocate.org. No prior experience is necessary. None of us, save for like maybe a couple of people like Molly, who's been in the field for a long time, we all had expertise in other subject matter areas outside. So whatever you might be able to bring to the table, honestly, all you need to do is just be reliable, compassionate, and level-headed. A lot of patience goes in with advocacy work. Additionally, we're always looking for honest, reliable, self-motivated individuals to join our board of directors. If you're passionate about becoming a local subject matter expert or exploring new areas of advocacy, we invite you to email us at that same address, and we can discuss your interests and find out where you're a good fit. All right. So with that, tonight's presentation, how to advocate for our incarcerated loved ones, will guide you through the key principles, tools, and strategies that you can use to hopefully make a difference. Whether you're advocating for improved medical care, better living conditions, fair treatment, we'll cover actionable steps that help empower you to navigate the system effectively. And throughout the presentation, we'll draw on real examples and share tips based on collective experiences. So again, feel free to use the chat if you've got any questions, and I will turn the time over to Molly Prince. So she will be discussing the basics of prison advocacy. And so Molly, I don't want to bury the lead, so if you want to go ahead and take it from here.
There you go. You can just flip right to the next slide and I'll get started.
Okay.
Okay. I'm excited to do this again. I know that we have a lot of new people and some people will be watching this later on YouTube or Facebook. But advocacy, basically the definition is it's focused on ensuring the rights, safety, and well-being of incarcerated individuals in our world. It works towards systemic changes in the prison system for humane treatment, rehabilitation, and successful reintegration of incarcerated individuals. So that's the type of advocacy we're going to focus on tonight. Okay, Shane. Okay, so the goals and pathways of UPenn's prison advocacy, we've got some key areas that we focus on. We want to protect our incarcerated loved ones' rights. And I should say this is for all incarcerated people. What we advocate for one, we advocate for all. And so it's to advocate for the rights of prisoners, including due process and humane conditions. And I want to make sure that you understand due process means within the prison system. We can't advocate for legal rights like in the court system. We promote rehabilitation. We want to support programs for education, mental health, substance use treatment, risk reduction courses, self-improvement programs, vocational programs, and job training. We work really hard multiple times a week, daily often, to address issues such as problems in housing assignments, the understaffing issues in our prisons, inadequate health care, inadequate mental health care, lack of therapists and treatment providers, nutritional issues, safety and security concerns, access to communication and visitation with family and support systems, and then the lack of access to legal resources within the prison system, like being able to get hold of those contract attorneys. And basically anything that becomes a problem, we've advocated for changing the landscaping so that mosquitoes are reduced, which is being successful. We advocate, we talk with culinary, getting stuff on commissary. Every single thing that happens in the prison, somewhere at some time, we've tried to advocate to improve it. We also, work on supporting reentry. And by that, I mean when people parole and go out to the community. And so we encourage UDC and APMP to continue to work on improving their programs in the community, but also to assist the incarcerated individuals in their transition back. So, in the last year or two, they've implemented reentry case managers that are supposed to start working with your incarcerated loved one about 6 months to 90 days before they are released, once they get a release date. If that's not happening, then we will help you try to figure out how to email the correct reentry coordinator. But that's a big deal. They need that help. Okay, Shane. Um, Another key area of focus is access to adequate medical, mental health, dental care, and optometry, I should say, and timely access to care. We've really worked hard to advocate for improved mental health staffing to address the mental health needs of the majority of Utah's 6,500 state inmates. I'm just going to say an aside, they don't have funding to keep adding more mental health therapists, but they need like 3 times the number they have in both of the prisons. We have tried to advocate against excessive medical copays, but those copays were implemented by Utah's legislature in 2009. So unless the legislature is willing to reverse those, that's not going to happen. We advocate for increased treatment in specialty areas, and that includes medication-assisted treatment for substance use disorder and treatment for hepatitis C. Okay. Um, Programming and education is another area, and we have directors. We have 2 directors involved in that, Amanda Bixman and Susan Sundstrom, to ensure that the incarcerated have access to educational and vocational training, including college courses, and we try to support literacy programs in higher education. There are a lot of risk reduction courses, but they're not always available to everybody. So we also try to advocate to make sure they're available, such as in Antelope and Hickory in the maximum security units. Some of the risk reduction and self-awareness courses that have been going really well the last couple of years are Captain My Story, which we've got nothing but positive feedback on, New Path Foundation, Defy Ventures, 7 Habits on the Inside. I think they still have Toastmasters, but there are quite a few more. So encourage your incarcerated loved ones to get involved with those because they count. They matter. As an aside, the board will look at everything they've done. Even if it's not for a time cut, the board will pay attention to what they've accomplished. We also try to identify and provide information to families about the ever-changing educational, therapeutic, and risk reduction offerings available within all of the IPP jails and Utah's prisons. Okay, Shane? Oh, this has been a real big one the last couple of years, and especially this last year in USCF. Conditions of confinement. So we are constantly in communication about the conditions for safety and housing, hygiene, access to medical care, vaccinations, and then talking to them about the understaffing that leads to the safety problems. We have had a little bit of progress this year in getting the housing staff up so that they're not leaving some of the units in USCF not even looked at for hours at a time. So I don't know if it's been helpful because at the same time they've changed how they house people. So there have been a lot of IMSs and fights and lockdowns. Programming and access in maximum security, as I mentioned before, is a really big deal that we've been trying to work on. Okay, RNO. We believe that it's very important for when someone walks into that prison system and they're stripped of everything they have, that they have family support. So we've worked really hard, and under Director Red, who left in February of this year, we were able to implement a video visit while someone was in RNO once they were classified. We have not made any progress on increasing their minutes from 135 phone minutes a month to 480, which would be 4 30-minute calls per week times 4 weeks. as everybody knows, when someone goes into RNO and they're cut off from their families, it's stressful for the families not to hear from their loved one, but it's very stressful for their loved ones to not be able to access their families to get some of, I mean, there's business that often has to be taken care of during that first 30 to 60 to 90 days of prison. We also work towards, oh, I think I've said this like 3 times, maximum security units, including access to rec times, increased phone minutes, access to codes and programming. We are happy that we saw some results. Antelope in USCF finally got their library stocked with books this year, and they're able to check them out as of, I believe, October. So that's like a plus. Okay, Shane. Okay, legal resources. We have been advocating for access for inmates to get legal materials. We were told when the new prison was being built that there would be a law library, but there's not a law library. Then we were told it would be available on the tablets, but according to what we hear from the people that complain is there's not. They have changed the grievance processes a few times. I don't know that they're any better or that they're fair. Family and community connections, we really push communication and support with families through the phone, mail, and visits throughout the entire incarceration process, both in the prisons and in the jails. And I know we've had issues with our visiting in our prisons, but the IPP jails severely limit visiting through the extreme costs of video visits and the lack of in-person visits. I'll just tell you, we just keep pushing to get the new rules for visiting in USCF posted. I was told this past week by Chief Pricker, he's working on it. There you go. 6 months later. Okay, next. There are a variety of types of advocacy organizations in the criminal justice world. You've got specific prison advocacy groups like us, like UPAN, like Prisoner Advocate Group, and there might be a couple others that have emerged on the scene that we're not really in connection with really well right now, but they're there. There are other nonprofit organizations, including Justice by Objectives or Journey of Hopes, that provide peer support in the jails or in some cases the prison and family peer support to families of those that are incarcerated. And we're hoping this year to add a new directory to our website that include all the other nonprofits. Oh, I left out specific prison advocacy. Paige Norton Advocate is another specific prison advocacy organization, and she also helps support people going to the board. And then there are a variety of other nonprofit community organizations that provide classes and programs within Utah's prison system. Okay, Shane. Legal advocates are the type of advocates that offer assistance with appeals, clemency petitions, and ensuring legal rights are upheld. UPAN does not provide legal advocacy. We do not have attorneys to provide that, but there's a list here. And this slideshow, I think, is available after, correct, Shane? Yeah, so you'll be able to look at this after, but other advocacy organizations for legal issues would include the Utah State Bar, the Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, the Rocky Mountain Innocence Center, the ACLU. There's the governmental agency post-conviction division of the Indigent Appellate Defense Division, the Disability Law Center, and some others. Okay, Shane. Okay, family support groups. UPAN does offer this. They can support each other on the prison journey, sharing experiences and information on how things work in a facility. Families can learn how to advocate for their loved ones. Some families write their legislators and lobby for legislative change in how the criminal justice system works. I want to say UPAN as an organization, our 501(c)(3) does not allow us to lobby as an organization. but we don't have a membership. So any family affiliated with UPAN, any director, anybody affiliated with UPAN, you can lobby on your own. Um, and so if you want to join our family support group, like Shane said earlier, you can go to our Facebook group or Facebook page and then go to the group and apply to join that. Okay, Shane. Okay, we also try to educate. We've hosted workshops. We publish a newsletter every month that goes out on email. We hold meetings, public events to inform the community, and we also use our social media to try to keep the public informed. And like I said before, legislative advocacy can be done by families of prisoners to help them understand the experience of families and inmates in our carceral system here in Utah. And then we collaborate with other organizations as well as UDC administration to try to develop fair and effective policies and to coordinate with other nonprofits that offer other services. Okay. There are a lot of challenges in prison advocacy. First, the lack of transparency historically has been horrid. Um, it's gotten a little better the last 2 or 3 years. Well, it got a lot better under Brian Redd compared to the previous decade. It's still not where we want it to be, but people have difficulty accessing accurate information about inmate treatment and prison conditions. And I'm going to just take a little side road here. I truly believe that people in the top administration really don't know what's happening down in the housing units. And I think that's because there's this long, long chain of command that goes from the housing officers to the sergeants to the lieutenants to the captains of those housing areas, then to the deputy warden of the housing area, then to the prisons warden, then to the division of prison operations, then up to one of the deputy executive directors, all the way up to the top. So that's why I think there's a disconnect because we get told by administration XYZ is supposed to be happening, and then it's really not happening down in the trenches. Another challenge in prison advocacy is getting the community on board with what we're trying to do. And I mean the non-prison community because of the stigma, just the negative public perception of incarcerated individuals, the idea of, oh, they did the crime, they can do the time, and we really don't care what their conditions are, not realizing 95% of people that go to prison will come out someday. And we have multitudes of people affected by prison that never did anything wrong called families. Um, we're limited with our resources. Nonprofits and advocates work with limited funds and volunteers. UPAN is not funded by grants. We don't have regular funding. We get donations, and we've had some really amazing, wonderful donors help us, but we don't have a constant flow of income. And then prison families, you guys all know you're already stretched thin financially by having an incarcerated loved one, trying to pay for phone calls and commissary and video visits if you're in a IPP jail. Some people pay a lot of money just to travel to visit their loved one in person if they have that opportunity. It's so expensive and resources are limited. Okay, Shane. There's a lot of pushback from institutions that are resistant to change. With UDC specifically, this changed remarkably in 2020, May of 2023, when Brian Redd, who's in the top picture in that photo, on I think your right, my right, well, looking at it, he's on my right. He became the executive director of UDC, and I think everybody on this call probably is aware how amazing he was. He was the one that got a lot of things done that we had been trying to get done for a long time. Since that time, in February of this year, he left to become chief of police, and Director Garcia took over, who had been one of his deputy directors. Red's administration became much less resistant to change and very open, and a lot of good things started happening. There's been a little bit of a shift back since he left, but we continue to meet with UDC regarding the changes that UDC continues to make, and we continue to advocate to improve those conditions for the prisoners, for ourselves, and for staff, because if inmates are happy, staff's happy, and if staff's happy, they're not going to pick on the prisoners. Um, I do have to say, though, it's been a whirlwind, as most of us on this call know, of change after change after change in the last 9 or 10 months, however long it's been since the new administration took over. And it's hard to keep up with all the changes. So that's a huge challenge because we as directors can get exhausted. You as families can get exhausted. Thank you, Shane. Okay, so we've had some changes. Believe it or not, even though we still have medical problems, enough that we have a med team to take care of them, not just one director, but healthcare access and oversight has improved over the last 5 years, but it continues to need improvement. Program availability has become more stable under some administrations. It did under Red, but there's been a lot of turnover in terms of the director of education and keeping programming staff on board, so it's not consistent. We have seen improvement in the process at the Board of Pardons and Parole because this is a behind the scenes thing, because they now have the electronic record system so that they have all the records there in one place versus the paper method they used to have. And believe it or not, there is more transparency between the board administration and UDC as well as advocates and incarcerated person. The board now sends out administrators from the board to meet with the incarcerated individual committees. And I don't know how they're selected, but certain inmates to talk about how to prepare for a board hearing. Um, Prisoner empowerment. The letters UPAN has gotten over the years often express appreciation that incarcerated people feel like they're starting to have a voice. They're starting to be listened to. Um, and like I said, the last 3 years, we've seen improvement in terms of UDC listening to our suggestions. Sometimes it doesn't happen fast enough, but truly, from about 2017 until 2023, they weren't wanting to really collaborate with us. The Incarcerated Individual Council started in 2024, and they hired Ski, who is the stakeholder experience coordinator in 24, and he got the Citizens Academy going. He got a lot going. So that's been our impact. Oh, Shane. Um, Oh yeah, I think I've already talked about some of this. The one video visit in RNO, we got that implemented. We did get the photographs and visits implemented during Red's tenure for 2 years, and then they took it away this year under Garcia. The quarterly gift packages were implemented. This is 2 years ago, but I think it was 3 years ago. And then there's been better correctional health oversight. There are still plenty of problems, but we can go up the chain of command, and they now have the family medical line that they didn't have 5 years ago. Oh, and we have a task force working on prison hospice and long-term care that's making baby steps. Shane. All right, the basics of individual advocacy. So when we as family members advocate, we usually get inspired to advocate because we are angry, frustrated, or scared. So there are two parts to every problem. The first part is the emotional part, and that's how we feel about the situation, including the other people involved, ourselves, and the actual issue. And then there's the practical part, which is the actual issue, the actual factors that contribute to the problem. Okay, Shane. So Before we send an email or make a phone call or do whatever we're going to do to advocate, we really have to work through our emotions so that we are able to communicate in a manner that they're going to listen to us. And I'm just going to say this like right up front. Nobody wants to negotiate or listen or help someone that is yelling at them. Like if this is human behavior, I'm a mental health therapist, behavioral health therapist, and human behavior is when we are attacked, we're not likely to try to be able to step back and say, "Oh, thank you for telling me what a horrible person I am." We get defensive. Well, corrections is the same way. So we must first work through our strong emotions so we are able to communicate in an effective manner. We need to work through our feelings about the situation, the people involved in it, and then what the actual issue is. I need to, this is from my own experience as a therapist and as a family member, step away from the issue. Think about it. Talk about it with a friend or a family member. When my husband was alive, oh my gosh, we had so many conversations. My loved one has been incarcerated for 24 years of his life. And we've been involved in about 21 of those years, like actively. Now I just talk to my niece or, whoever wants to listen. But I have to do that before I start writing my emails. Our minds will then be more clear and calm to research, gather information, and identify possible solutions to the problem. And then with our emotions in check, we're able to more clearly and effectively communicate to the appropriate staff, administrators, or others in a manner that welcomes discussion and collaboration. We won't make them shut down. Shane? Okay, preparing to send a concern, first of all, and I don't know if this is even in here, I forgot I went through it today, but first of all, make sure we get as many facts from our loved ones as possible. Dates, times, situations, what they were told when they were told they didn't have medications every day for a week. Okay, all of that to get their perspective and their information. And then we need to make sure we know what the policies are. And whatever the policies are, if we don't know what they are, you can go to the UDC website and go to the policies section, and it's very laborious. I don't like going there, but it's very laborious. But you can find the different policies, and they're full of legal words, but you can find a lot of the policies on there, and that can give you a little bit of a leg to stand on. But again, when we approach them with their policies, we don't say, well, you guys aren't following policy. We say something to the effect of, I understand policy 123X2 says blah, 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 and it doesn't appear that this situation is complying with that. So you have to be like diplomatic. So also read everything on the website. Read everything in the inmate handbook, read everything about on the friends and families tab. Know exactly what you're up against. Okay, Shane. Then, once we've educated ourselves on the policies and processes, stay up to date on what's happening. A lot of this stuff changes without it being changed in policy, as we all know with the visiting dress code, okay? So never make an assumption about what the rules are or what they used to be. And because they were this way 10 years ago, they should be this way now. Don't make assumptions about what the reasons are. We can't advocate if we don't know what the policies are and what the rationale behind it is. And the only way to find that out is to stay as calm as possible and be open to what we're told. Doesn't mean we have to like it, and it doesn't mean we have to truly believe it, but we need to know their perception. We also recommend to do this if you guys are subscribing to the UPAN newsletter. Every month, we try to talk about something relevant, and we've been doing this newsletter for almost, we're started on our 13th year, 12th year, 12th year. And it's got information, and things have evolved and changed. I was going through some old newsletters from like 2015 and putting them in the recycle bin, old paper ones. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that this is how it used to be. So things change. And then if you attend these meetings, you can stay up to date on a lot of things with the guest speakers. Also, please join again the family support group. Okay, Shane? Then we have to be able to effectively communicate. So we have to define the purpose. Why are we going to send this email? We're going to identify why. Is it to inform someone that this is happening, or is it to ask a question, or is it to resolve a situation, or is it to try to convince them that something needs to be changed? Know our audience, understand the needs and expectations and communication styles of the person or persons that we're communicating with, and then send to the correct person and then go up the chain of command. Now, they've changed this in the last year. Since Red left, we can't go directly to the warden or directly to a lieutenant over or something. We're supposed to go to specific places. You can, your loved one and you both can go to his or her case manager for a non-medical issue as a place to start, especially if it's about programming or moves. And then if it's medical, you can start with emailing corrections at utah.gov with the medical issue or calling the family medical line if your loved one has signed the release of information. The other person, and I thought it was on here somewhere, but we are now told we can email Ski directly and we can email Aubrey Anderson, who also answers the corrections at utah.gov. I think it might be on the next page, Shane. Oh, Anne has something to say.
I was just going to say medical would only apply to the two prisons. If your inmate, if your loved one is in IPP in a jail, you have to go through the jail, the prison, and the UDC's medical, and the Department of Health and Human Services don't deal with the jails.
That's absolutely right. Although I will say, I have reported stuff from the jails to Dr. Wisner at DHHS because they're still state inmates. And I figure if we let them know that there's a problem, then they're going to have to figure out how they work that out. But you're right, Dr. Wisner can't fix somebody in Cache County Jail's medical issue. Thank you. Okay. Excuse me. To create the message, this is basically a guideline for emails and letters, and also what you might want to say on the telephone. Okay, if I'm going to make a phone call, I have learned do not do it off the top of my head because I go into emotion. I make notes and I have them on a piece of paper that I try to stick to. So we want to be clear, use simple, concise, and clear language, and the structure should be clean and not confusing. So always discuss one issue at a time. If I have three different issues for my loved one that's incarcerated, I need to send three different emails. I need to not send, well, he didn't get seen by the doctor, and why was he moved to such and such in the same email? They need to be separate. Organize, the structure is you organize information logically, include an introduction, then your main points or your questions, and some kind of a conclusion. If you have a lot of history or information you need to share to give context, like a safety or security threat concern or a medical history, do it in bullet points rather than one long paragraph. I will tell you that Dr. Power educated me in this. He's in USCF, and there was a very serious situation that I escalated all the way through everything. And he emailed me back because I had given him like 5 years worth of history on this person and it was 5 years of prison history. And I bullet pointed it, but he emailed me back and he said, Molly, just the facts. I know the family's upset. I know everybody's worried. just the facts, because I have to read this all and then I research it all. So give the facts. It's okay to say, I am very concerned about XYZ, but leave it at that. Don't give them a commentary on what will happen if their loved one isn't seen in a timely manner, because the medical doctors know what will happen if they've been ignored. And this is also an aside. We have gotten repeated emails of appreciation for bringing medical issues that have fallen through the cracks to their attention. So, just as long as they can get to the gist of it so they can start researching it. Also, when you're writing, write as if you're writing a formal letter and use punctuation, be really clear. Do not have run-on sentences. And then choose an appropriate tone. And this is one of the most important things. Use the right words while having a non-combative tone can get you your serious concerns across without you coming off as aggressive, threatening, or criticizing. Again, none of us want to be told we're useless or that we hate somebody or that we're not doing our job. Even if we're not doing our job, human beings don't want to be told that. So find a way. We have to build the bridges. And this is how we get them to listen to us. And there's a little reminder that we have a tendency to shut down. So it applies to written communication. Shane. Okay, the delivery method. Will it be a verbal phone call or an email or in a virtual online meeting? So, an email I have found, I love emails because they provide a record of the communication. And I love this when families are sending the med team information for a medical thing, because then we have some kind of history we can go back through. Messages on a phone. I can't go through 6 months of messages to find out our last communication about your loved one on Messenger. Um, a phone call, I don't like so much unless it's really urgent and I have myself under control, because it can be interpreted through the perception of the listener and our words can't be changed once we've said them. So make notes if you're doing a phone call so that you can stick to those notes. And then be considerate of the person answering the phone. Oftentimes, the person answering the phone is not likely the person that's going to resolve your problem. Like the medical family line, Tina, she's not a medical provider. She cannot resolve your problem. All she can do is focus on getting the information, escalating it to medical, or if there's a release of information, she can give you whatever she's allowed to give you. So yelling at her and saying that the medical isn't doing their job and you're going to sue the prison, that's not going to, she can't do anything about that. So sometimes we're able to bring up issues in online meetings with corrections. If you do that, be prepared with notes for that in the same way as you would a phone call, and remain as calm and respectful as possible, even though some of these issues bring up incredibly strong emotion. And we're all human. I don't know how many stakeholders meetings I've cried in because I'm either one, so relieved that they're finally going to do something about a problem, but other times I've cried just because I'm frustrated and it feels like there's no hope. Okay, Shane. Okay, nonverbal communication. Okay, use the tone of voice that aligns with your message. Even though you want to do what this lady's doing in the picture, just contain yourself. Remember that the person on the other end does not really know you well, so be careful of being too stern or demanding, because again, they're the front line. They're not the people making the decisions down in the housing units. Often the people, they're relaying the concern. Stick to the facts and never ever use foul language or derogatory language. It will not help them to want to help you if they feel attacked, and they have permission to just hang up on you if you start swearing at them. Okay, next. Excuse me. Active listening during a phone call. So you want to focus and give your full attention to the speaker, avoid distractions, and this is very important in meetings. Um, do not interrupt when they're telling you what they can or cannot do. Wait and listen. Don't be busy thinking about what you're going to say to rebut them. Just listen to what they're saying. Ask questions to clarify and confirm what they've said. This can be done in calls, meetings, and on email threads, and make sure you understand exactly what you're being told. Miscommunication and misunderstanding causes more problems than anything. And then use verbal acknowledgments such as I see, or if you're in person, nod, show that you understand what they're saying. Okay. And then encourage responses. Okay. Encourage feedback. So invite questions, opinions, or reactions to your message. Remain open to the answers, feedback, or ideas that are presented by whomever you're communicating with. Remember, accepting what they're saying doesn't mean you agree with it, doesn't mean you like it. It means you're just accepting what they're saying and you can sort it out after the call is over, or if it's in an email, you can read it and figure it out later. Um, okay, so you can go to the next one, Shane. Um, and be flexible. Try to adjust your approach based on the person you're talking to, like their position, their openness to discuss what you're discussing, their responses to feedback, or changes in context of what you're discussing. This includes phone, person, and written. I want to say I have a good relationship. I so apologize for my froggy voice, you guys. So, for example, Anna Lee Carlson and she's been with the prison for like 25 years. I've been dealing with the prison for 22 years. I can have a less formal conversation with her, but I'm still always going to remember she's like a professional colleague. She's not my best friend, right? So I'm not going to moan and groan and complain. I'm just going to say, help me understand why you won't accept glasses from, I don't know, somewhere that they won't accept glasses from, or help me understand why you won't keep somebody's property for an extra 30 days when they've been in medical for 30 days, right? And she'll help me understand that. But I think I'm a lot more formal. I mean, I'm pretty frank with everyone I talk to, but I'm more formal when I'm talking to, say, a captain or a deputy warden that I've never met before because I don't know who they are. So just know your audience. And if you don't know who they are, then just keep it as polite and formal as possible and just keep asking your questions until you get your answers. And it doesn't mean we get the answers we want, just the answers. Okay, next, Shane. Okay. This is, again, your emotions can become a barrier to effective communications. So always take a deep breath and step back. And if staff becomes frustrated or impatient, try to use empathy to understand what it might be like to be the one hearing complaints all day, like Tina in the medical phone line. I don't know how she does that job. You can clarify that you understand that they're not likely the person that caused the problem and can't fix it. Let them know you appreciate their efforts because their job is to escalate. Okay. If the barrier is a non-response to an email you've sent, review the email and see how the tone comes across. If it was harsh or critical, you might not get a response. Especially, oh, let me say this. If somebody threatens them with a lawsuit, they will cut communication. Okay, so we've learned don't threaten legal action, or they're going to say, "Oh, now you get to talk to the Attorney General's office." But the other thing is it's really hard now to talk to the people under this administration to talk directly to the Division of Prison Operations or to the warden. We have to go through the other steps. So for sure, those people are not the ones that are going to be solving your problem. And we don't always get responses to our emails the way we were getting under red. So just try another follow-up email. Okay. Okay, so key principles, research and know all aspects of the problem. Be consistent, try to use empathy and patience. Everything takes so long in the correction system. You can follow up in a week or two. You can follow up in a day or two. What I've learned is if four different people are getting the same email from you, they don't answer because they can say, well, I thought the warden was going to answer, or I thought this person was going to answer, and then nobody answers and nobody looks into it because they can pass the buck. Okay, next one. I think
Okay, I think
that's
that's the
it.
end of your slides, Molly. Do you want to pause and take any questions, or do you want to hold them till the end?
Let's take like two questions and then let's move on.
Okay, so from the comments, I'm seeing Shireen, thank you for sharing the additional justice projects, the Dulum Justice Project, AGP Restorative Justice. She's talking about some roundtables happening up at the Capitol. Um, Aria Vallejo Ortega asks, from your experience, what actually motivates the UDC to follow through on promises that they've made? For example, when they've committed to something like providing a new library that hasn't been delivered, is litigation or credible threat of a lawsuit the effective motivator, or are there stronger accountability mechanisms that tend to work better? I know the Utah general elections are coming up and so many seats are up. I want to know what impact can be done to truly influence these people that are running for office.
Well, if I had the specific answer to that, we might already have accomplished it. Like I said before, threats of lawsuits really don't motivate them, but consistency and talking to all the different people that change. So when Brian Red got in, stuff that we've been asking for years, he listened to, he wanted to know. He was the right person to hear it and to do some things about it. We got some extra phones put in some of the housing units because they only had four and they put two more in. So I think being consistent, not giving up, and finding the right people to talk to. Now, I'm going to tell you that I'm pretty sure that none of the directors right now in UPAN have been focused on the library, the law library this year because of all the safety issues between medical and all of the safety issues and fights and people getting housed in the wrong places. That's where we've focused. That's where I've focused probably 30 hours of my week every single week. So you might want to email us if you're interested in helping with getting a law library, because maybe we can, I mean, we can always use ideas on and research. Okay, here's the other thing. Sorry, I'm taking way too long to answer this. Research of what other prisons do has helped us in the past get some things changed. So if people have time, if you have time, that would be great. Okay.
Okay. I'm not sure if I understand the whole context of this next question, but Zoom user asks, how does it all help with inmates in IPP? I don't know if that's just a general question about inmates in IPP.
Oh, okay. Every every concept and idea that we've talked to you about to use in the prisons is applicable to a jail. So, but you have to get to know the jail. You have to be able to call and talk to whoever answers the phone. Remember, they're not the cause of the problem. Find out what person to talk to in what jail. And since there's so many jails and they all have their own rules, I'm going to defer. Anne, do you have anything to say about that? Anne's our director of IPP issues, and she's trying to learn all the jails.
Yeah, right. Um, yeah, based on my experience from when my son was in jail, I find that the jails are much more responsive to family members than they are to me as representing UPAN. So family members, you can be the best advocate for your loved one. And again, and it's so important to be kind and respectful when you're talking to them. I, I had the jails be very kind and respectful back to me because of, how my husband and I treated them and work on issues. And, they get frustrated too when communication issues are a problem or when medications are a problem. And so um, they like to try and fix those things. So the best thing you can do is look up the gel, find out the contact information. There's usually an email and a phone. You may or may not get through, but when you do, just be very respectful and do all the steps that Molly suggested in reaching out. I think it's so important to remember every single person goes through their own stuff. Corrections staff suffers through all the same stuff we do. They have diseases, they have family problems, they have depression, they have, they face all the same issues we do as human beings. And so treat them like you want to be treated, and you'll get further.
And if I might add on to that, just as a person with an incarcerated loved one that's been in IPP for the last 6 years, I just echo what Molly and Ann said. In addition to that, a lot of times just calling the general number, you don't always know who you need to talk to or the appropriate person is. A lot of times they'll be very helpful. More times than not, you're not going to get to talk to the jail commander, the main person in charge of the jail, but it's usually a sergeant or somebody of or a lieutenant, somebody of that rank that might have the answers. And sometimes they have specific tasks. The other thing to keep in mind is just like prisons, county jails often have a rotating, the revolving door of officers coming in and out of there. I mean, it's pretty common that they're switching agencies quite a bit. So sometimes, the staff that might be there, now today might not be there in 6 months. Maybe they might be reassigned or if this person was over education now, maybe they've gone to another county jail or they're, gone to a different assignment or, gone from corrections to being a street cop. So those kind of things to bear in mind too. So sometimes institutional memory can be lost, especially in jails, and it can be hard because county sheriffs they can run their jail however they like. There are jail standards, and when they do contract with the state, with the Utah Department of Corrections, there are some standards that they do have to comply with. But if you've ever had a family member say go from one county jail to another county jail, you know that it's very different. A lot of times, the permissions and things that they had available to them at one jail isn't available at another jail. So just bear all that in mind. A lot of times I've had success contacting my loved one's IPP case manager because every jail has an IPP case manager. So if all else fails, you can always talk to that person. Usually they can point you in the right direction if they don't know. But the other main problem is just sometimes sometimes the jail will say, I don't know, you're going to have to call UDC about that. And then UDC will say, I don't know, that's a jail problem. And then it's just, back and forth, which can be frustrating, but you just have to stick with it, learn the policy at that particular jail and just follow the policy just like you do with the prison. And it's hard because sometimes it's not always published. Most of them don't have good websites where this information is available. So you're having to call. And so, just be patient and just work through the process and get on our family group and share with other family members because chances are there's family members with family members in the same jail. So with that, I think we can move on to so there's some follow-up questions real quick.
I can answer some of those in the chat so Amanda can move on.
Okay, so I'm going to move things along so that Amanda can take over. Amanda, hopefully your voice is okay to continue. Here, I'll unmute you. There you go.
Okay, perfect. I don't know what I did. I just screwed everything up.
Can you see that okay?
Well, my screen just went super small for some reason.
We're on checklist and steps for preparing an email.
Got it. Okay, so to put together an email, it's important to gather as much information as you can, such as the details of the incident, like specifically what happened, the names of people involved, like if it involved officers, if it was something that happened during like searches or like fights or whatever. Just you need to get names of people that were involved, any medical providers, any staff that might have been around, the date and the time that it happened, and just collect as much information as you can. And if there's other inmates around, that's always a good thing to have too, just so you can really get a clear picture of exactly what happened. Next. Go through the proper chain of command when you're preparing and sending your email. UDC asks families to email corrections@utah.gov. It goes to Aubrey Anderson in Constituent Services at the Utah Department of Corrections Public Information Office. She tracks all the concerns and forwards them to the appropriate division directors or the warden, whoever it needs to go to, and just kind of triages that so that it goes to who it needs to go to solve that problem or get information for you on what can be done to try to fix the problem. Karen Taffy, the public information officer, also assists. Their email addresses are here, Karen Taffy at ktaffy@utah.gov, and Aubrey Anderson is aubreyAnderson@utah.gov. You could also, there's a lot of really good information on UDC's website lately too. They've done a lot of updating on there as well. So you can go on there as well. UPAN has been asked to send all of our emails to corrections@utah.gov. And so that's where we send all of our stuff first. Utah Department of Corrections has also asked that people go to Ezekiel Afatasi, which we call him Ski. He's the UDC Stakeholder Experience Coordinator. And there's his email there, Ezekiel Afatasi@utah.gov, before sending to other officials in corrections. And he is amazing. He's like super helpful. And sometimes when I email them, I'll just send it to the corrections@utah.gov and I'll CC him on it. Sorry, my throat is so dry. Understand the complaint from both sides if it's possible. I know it's really easy to get emotional about things. I've done it many times, and I'll usually write my email and then I don't send it. I will have my husband read it. I'll have my family members read it. I make sure that it doesn't sound attacking in any way. I also try to come up with solutions to the problem if there's a problem, and just offer kind of support and see both sides. It's important to be able to identify both sides when writing the complaint and take accountability for what your loved one violated, if there was a violation, and state how it will be corrected on their behalf. Also express in your complaint about what went wrong. Next. Do your homework. Never send complaints immediately after writing them, even if the matter seems urgent, unless it is life or death. Replay the scenario and make sure you know the rules and policies and what is expected by prison officials. And it's like what Molly was saying, if you're attacking, you're not gonna get anywhere. They're just gonna shut you down, and then you kind of get flagged it seems like, and then you have a really hard time solving any problems. And then you also have to be careful because you can make it really hard on your loved one as well. And you have to remember that your loved one is in their custody. So you got to pick and choose your battles. Look up their policy information on the UDC website under the Family and Friends tab, and that's under policies. And there's a ton of policies in there, and you can kind of get lost in it. But sometimes it's kind of good to get lost in it because you can really learn a lot about their policies when you're looking for something. A link on the policy page will open a document repository with folders containing PDFs. And there are 8 manuals labeled A through H. Each one represents a different corrections area, such as department, administrative, AP&P, CCCs, LEB, DPO, UCI, or facilities. It's usually a lot of these that you're going to be looking for are going to be under the facilities one. Sometimes they're under the DPO. If it's to do with the law enforcement bureau, it'll be under there. But if it's regarding their matrix and how much stuff they can have, or if they got stuff taken away, a lot of that will be under their facilities in that category. Browse and read through the documents to familiarize yourself with various UDC policies relevant to your situation. This will help you understand both perspectives. Next. Then compose the email. It's important to understand that the people you are emailing weren't involved in the issue, and they should be addressed respectfully. They are the ones that will possibly be helping to solve the problem. And I have had really great experiences trying to get problems solved, to be honest with you. Sometimes it can take a little while, and sometimes I don't always get answers that I want, and I'm really frustrated. If your loved ones has belongings that get broken or whatever, it's pretty frustrating, because it's hard to contain yourself sometimes, but you have to, because, you think about, well, my loved one's in there being held accountable. Where is their accountability? But you can't, if you have an attitude like that, you're not going to get very far. Explain any corrective actions that your loved one has already initiated themselves. Ask them to help control what we can't control. Next. And then take another timeout, step away for a few minutes. See, like you can tell this section was written by me, for me, because I need all these timeouts because I have to review everything just to make sure I'm not attacking anybody when I want to address problems. Review your email. Make sure it doesn't come off as attacking or threatening. Read your email to your husband, sister, friend, etc., to see how they perceive it. Revise it if it's attacking or it has language that would be perceived as inflammatory or attacking. If all is well, send it. And then, like this caution says, UDC will stop all communication if a family member becomes aggressive in their emails or phone calls, uses foul language, or says they are going to sue the prison. And that is no joke. You will get no response. It is UDC policy that once someone says they are going to sue the prison, that all communication with that person must go through the Attorney General's office, the prison liaison, rather than UDC staff respond. And they do this because if you're threatening them with a lawsuit, they're not going to say anything to you that could possibly, bury them or get them in trouble. And then that's all. And then I was going to say one more thing about, if you guys want, if you're asking, I saw like in that one question, about how to, that we vote for these people and how to get the word out, a lot of people don't like talking about their situation to just strangers and stuff, but people don't really understand the criminal justice system unless you're in it. And if you're, once you educate people on what's really going on, they kind of see it from a different point of view. And that's when people kind of start to pay attention when it comes to voting and the retention of these seats and stuff. So that's kind of how you get the word out. It takes a long time, and it takes just advocating for the right thing in the criminal justice system. And then that's all I have to say.
Well said. Thank you, Amanda. You made it all the way through.
I did.
Does anybody have any questions for Amanda's section before we move on to the final section? I'm not seeing anything specifically about that in the chat. No hands up. So I'll go on to the next section. Molly, is this you or Karen doing this last section?
It's actually
This is Karen.
Oh, that's an echo going on. Karen?
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. We'll press from here. Go ahead to the first slide, Shane. Writing letters. And this can be a very powerful tool. And fortunately for our families who belong to UPAN, we have a lot of tools in our toolbox. It's just knowing which one to use at the right time. Sometimes writing our letters, though, can have a negative effect. If we go about it the wrong way, what affects one of us affects all of us. And we can be on a positive track to a resolution and have something blow up in our face because somebody insisted on just approaching it with all the ways we've been warned against tonight, either by being threatening or demeaning or demanding that action be taken and not understanding the process of how we do it. So go ahead, Shane. Okay, writing letters to the legislature can affect outcomes. The secret here, though, is writing the letter to the right person at the right time. A lot of people jump right on this and say that I'm going to write a letter to the governor. Well, the governor is not the person who is going to fix your problem or your concern. What the governor is going to do is he's going to kick it right back to his agency that is in charge of taking care of that concern. And nobody likes their boss calling them on the phone or sending them an email and asking them, why haven't you paid attention to this, or why haven't you fixed this? So the most important thing that we do is take our time and understand the chain of command, understand how the process of law is handled in Utah through the legislature, and we start with finding out who our representatives are. And also remember, a lot of people say, I'm going to write my senator or my representative in Washington. Utah's prisons are not funded federally. So our resolutions and our solutions to our problems are not funded federally. And we need to work with our local elected officials. Go ahead, Shane. So the first thing you've got to do is find out who your elected representatives are in the state of Utah. And you can go to this by going to le.utah.gov. And when you come up to this site, you will find several selections. You will find you will find what committees they're assigned to, you will find what bills are in legislation, and you will be able to find who your state senator is and who your representative is that sits in the Utah House. Go ahead. So once you find that legislature representatives, you need to take note of that and remember, and then do a little exploration and a little inquiry about that person. Find out what committees or subcommittees they sit on. Look at and track their voting record. What kinds of things have they been effective in and responsive to in the past? Get a little bit of understanding of the mindset and the knowledge that this person has concerning that issue which you are trying to get an answer to. Go ahead, Shane. So you can then get down to writing a letter. And usually writing the letter is one of the last things you do, not one of the first things that you do. This means that you have done your homework. You've done your due diligence. You have determined what the problem is. You have determined what the governing legislative rules and actions and laws of the state of Utah are that can impact on your problem. You have looked at the voting record of this person that you're going to ask to help you, and you are now ready to write a letter. First thing you want to do is send a greeting. You just don't want to jump right on their throat right off the bat and say, here, I'm here to criticize everything you've done and your voting record, and I'll never support you again. But you want a greeting. And in that greeting, identify who you are. If you are a constituent within their voting district, make sure that you identify that. If you are a concerned citizen because of a committee that they set on or a bill that they're backing, then you need to identify that. And if you happen to be a subject matter expert on something that is going to be addressed by the Utah State Legislature, identify yourself of that. So give your full name, your address, and your email. And if you have had past or prior experience with this legislature, and especially if it's been in the positive nature and had a good constructive outcome, remind them and thank them for working with you in the past and express your desire that that can continue to the future. Go ahead, Shane. Okay, then you need to let them know why you're writing. Is it because there is something that has not been addressed by the legislature in the past and it's time for that? Is it because there has been something addressed and enacted and put into law, but it's not working as designed? The outcomes are not what were promised or are desirable? Or is it to lend your support or your opposition to a current bill or legislation that is being discussed? Be very clear on why it is that you're writing. Go ahead. Then the focus of the issue, as Molly and Amanda both pointed out, if you have several issues that you need to address, pick one. Pick one for your letter. And then when you have picked that one, pick the three most important points in your case, in your argument. Be very clear, be very informative, and above all, be factual and stay focused on what that one point is. If you have more than one issue, then take the opportunity to write more than one letter, but have each letter have one focal point and ask for one corrective action. Your letters can't be too long. What you're going to find is when you write these letters, most often they do not go directly to the legislature or to the elected official, but they go to someone on their staff. The staff then has the job to sort through, read the letters, and then rank them in a priority to triage them basically as to what needs to be addressed first and addressed by whom. So keep your letters short, keep it to 1 page as possible. That's about 500 words. And then after you've sent this letter, continue to be involved. Don't be afraid to send a follow-up. Don't be afraid to inquire as to, has there been any action taken? Has it been considered? And when the opportunity comes to show up to a meeting or to a hearing, make sure that you do, whether it's online or in person. Go ahead. And then this is very important. Stay informed. Sometimes we feel like we write letters and they go into a great void somewhere out there in internet space and never to be heard from again. But start to track the legislature, especially track those bills which deal with the problem that you're issuing. Track those members of those committees and subcommittees. Listen to their comments, listen to their concerns, track their involvement as to what is going on. And as you see these different websites listed here on this slide, you can use those to zoom into the meetings, to subcommittee meetings. You can look at voting records, and you can look at the final outcome of where that bill, whether it dies in committee or whether it goes to the House floor and to the Senate floor for votes, and just make these legislatures accountable by tracking their actions and what they do. Go ahead. So these are last year's slides, and we need to update now to 2026. But especially pay attention to the Senate Judiciary, Law Enforcement, and Criminal Justice Committee. As UPAN, because we are involved with Utah's incarcerated and those that are in the justice system, we need to pay attention to these bills. These are the bills that will ultimately come back and affect our loved ones, how they are worded, how they are enacted, and then how they are applied when they get to the Utah prison system. So you need to pay attention, and most importantly, you need to pay attention not now, but pay attention to the midterm elections. Watch the people that you have elected and sent to the legislature to represent you. Look at how they respond. Are they in line with the way that you feel, with the things that you feel are important? And let your vote in November determine whether or not you are in agreement with the way that they have handled their job. If they are, support them. If they are not, then consider making a change. But we can't just simply sit back and think that somebody else is going to take care of it. As has been pointed out several times in this evening's discussion, UPAN does not lobby, but as personal citizens, we can all lobby. We can go forward, we can make our voices heard, as long as we do our homework before we take that step, as long as we have an understanding of how the system works. We don't get anywhere by simply writing a letter that insults the intelligence of ourselves and the intelligence of those people that we have elected. We get somewhere if we stay focused, if we stay informed, and if we follow up our letters with our vote. And a lot of discussion went on tonight about the IPP program. We can apply this same method to each one of those county jails. We can get informed. We can look at the track record of the county sheriffs. We can understand how the programs are being funded and being handled in each one of those counties. And we can work for that type of change. Okay, slide, Shane. So the things that we want to avoid is we don't want to be a bully and we don't want to be angry. That won't get us anywhere. That will get a hang up on the other end, or they'll just check out and won't pay attention to us. We have to make sure that we talk in language that is common and familiar to our audience. We can't use slang. We can't use vulgar terms. We can't use jargons. We really have to watch our misspelling and our grammar. We need to come across as someone who has researched our concern and who can talk intelligently about it. We need to talk in information, not emotion. And as has been pointed out, this is very hard to do, but write it down, consider it, step away from it, find somebody that you value, somebody that you trust, run your argument past them, have them read what you've written, and then make the next step from there. And then we have to be careful of generalization. That's the biggest problem that I see that we have in the justice system is all of our loved ones have been put into one pot. They are all considered the same. They're all bad. They all deserve to be there. They all deserve nothing more than what they're getting. And in fact, they're getting more than what they deserve already. We have to be careful that we don't treat the solution the same way. Each case needs to be looked at independently. Each person needs to be looked at individually. And those are the things that we can do to be a voice for our loved ones who have no voice. So we can make a difference. We can use the right tool at the right time. But we have to stay involved. And this is a commitment. Sometimes our family page, sometimes that's where we advocate for ourselves. Sometimes and we've seen it on there, we see people come on there and say, I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what else to do. I'm so angry. I'm hurt. I'm disappointed. And I'm let down. Sometimes that's okay to say on the family page. But remember your audience there too. Your audience are other family members. All of us have hit that wall at one time or another. We're here to support each other, but we're not here to blame each other. We will get nowhere in this journey if we don't take the time to help each other and to do all that we can to be the kind of advocate that our loved one needs. And I think that should be my last slide.
That's it. Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you.
All right, that's the end of the presentation. I would like to open it up for questions. Going to the chat here. Let's see, I see a little bit of a discussion going on. More question about the UDC. Question, we were told by Union Supply that the quarterly package is delivered to Salt Lake City on December 17th. CECF still has not received anything.
I don't know, Maggie, if you're on the UPAN family Facebook group, but I posted last week that they said that the remaining packages that had not been delivered last week should be delivered this week. And it explained it, but I'll just briefly explain for anybody that doesn't know how that's worked. So Union Supply doesn't send every single package all at once in one truck for, however, let's say even half of the people, 3,000 people to get packages between USCF and CUCF. It all goes to UCI in the warehouse in in the Salt Lake prison. And so they come in different trucks. So we were told it arrived, the first one arrived on December 22nd, and then they had more to arrive because we were asking if they would get them by Christmas, and obviously that didn't happen. I know that my loved one who is in USCF got his the Friday, I guess it would be right after New Year's. And then some in CUCF started to get theirs last week, but we were told there's still green, I think, hadn't gotten theirs in USCF. So last week, they told us that all of them should be delivered this week sometime. Is it fair? No, but it's just the logistics of it. Plus, the staff in UCI that supervises the inmates that sort everything had Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and New Year's Day off. So that put things behind this time. So hopefully, if you want, you can email Ezekiel Afatasi at utah.gov. He's the stakeholder experience coordinator, and ask about your own loved one and see if he'll send it over to UCI and see if that's been packaged and delivered, sorted and delivered. Karen Topahy is the director of No, she's not. She's in constituent services in the public information office. Um, and her email was on one of those slides, so it'll be available on this slide. Or, if you look at the slides. So last year, Jade Watkin was still there, and Aubrey Anderson has replaced Jade Watkin. Oh, I'm sorry, Maggie. I'm all over the place. I can only see piece of the chat. So I hope that helps Maggie about the packages.
You had partially answered this, but I think it's good for everyone to hear. Suzanne Tanner asked, for those who have sued the UDC, how were their loved ones treated? And you were talking about how retaliation is real.
Yeah, I rarely, so unless it's like a legal appeal, we get a lot of info, even though we can't do legal work, we get a lot of information on people's legal appeals, but we don't get a lot of information when there's an open, from inmates, when there's an open case going, suing the prison. And so I don't know how they've been treated. We usually just hear about it through the news or through maybe some attorney friends or people that say, "Oh yeah, did you hear about the hepatitis C, got ruled on that they have to provide hepatitis C treatment." But I'm gonna imagine that down in those housing units, if officers know that someone is suing the prison, they might not get treated very well. That's my that's just my experience. Like people that put in a lot of grievances don't always get treated very well. Um, so we don't have any data on that. Vicky asked if IPP inmates get quarterly packages as well. If the jail that they're in does packages, then the answer is yes. But each jail has its own rules because it's run by the county, not the state.
JRH asked, what if after multiple attempts, the caseworkers never respond to us or our incarcerated loved one? What do you do then?
Then you can email Ezekiel Afatasi at utah.gov. Shane put his email, he goes by Skee, Skee. Shane put his link or his email in there. So Skee is the stakeholder experience coordinator that Brian Red hired in 2024. And he's like the liaison. Stakeholders are families, stakeholders are incarcerated people, stakeholders are staff, and stakeholders are providers of services that go into the prison, like volunteers and stuff. So you can always email Ski, Eseki. Yeah, okay, that email's correct. Um, and see if he can escalate it. There are some case managers that are amazing and some case managers that are just not, they just don't do their jobs.
Okay, and then Aria Vallejo Ortega asks, how is misconduct by an officer or case manager addressed? Um, how can a family member find out about it? All of a sudden, they are moved to another branch of UDC. How can we hold them accountable?
Okay.
We, as advocates, are never going to get an answer as to what the sanctions were for a staff member that did something wrong. Either they disappear, they retire early, or they're relocated somewhere, but they're never going to tell us. That's one place where there will be no transparency. And in 13 years, I've just gotten used to the idea that
Well,
I'm not, I
sometimes
might,
it does go through post. If it does go through post, they do have a
oh,
process there where I think that there is a public disclosure there. So that would be one area, but like if they were to leave the organization, I don't think so.
yeah, if it goes through post, if it's that serious, um, yeah. But if it's, we've just, we've had reports of officers that just keep getting transferred to different housing units, even though they're they're not appropriate. whether they're with the men or the women. Um, so we don't have an answer for finding out what the actual sanction was. They're very protective of each other that way. But it's kind of like, I can understand this because if I get a report from UDC that a director or one of the UPAN families was really rude and that they're considering not talking to them again, I don't announce that to the world. I just go to that person, if that makes sense. So we all kind of protect ourselves, I guess, that way, right or wrong.
I think you answered packages and commissary. Suzanne Tanner asks, when you write the legislators, do you get responses?
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
gotten responses from most of them.
Yes.
A lot of times, like I've had meetings with sometimes they'll write back and they'll be like, "Hey, do you want to come down to wherever, City Hall or wherever, you know, and talk to me? I'd like to know more."
Yeah.
So sometimes you can have a nice little chat with them, or you can see them at town hall meetings, but more often than not, they're pretty flexible. Most of them are pretty good to work with.
Yes.
Suzanne, you said you haven't received a response. If they are involved in the criminal justice and law enforcement subcommittees, that's been my experience that I get answers. And I've gotten a response from my personal senator, but not my representative. And my personal senator is not part of the law enforcement committee, but so it can be hit and miss, if that makes sense. Um, how do we Zoom user? I think mean how do they know we are a part of the UPenn family? I'm not sure what that means. How does who know? How do you know?
How does the legislator know?
Molly, can I just say
Sure.
something? I think maybe they're wondering how the legislator can know they're part of the UPAN family. One thing I would caution is don't say you represent UPAN or you are speaking for UPAN. We can't lobby up there. And I've had people organizations call and say, someone in a committee meeting said they were representing us and they were not. And so, make sure you don't claim you're representing UPAN, but you can say I'm part of UPAN and this is, or I don't know. What would you suggest, Molly?
I don't even think it matters if you say whether you're part of UPenn because not everyone up there knows who Utah Prisoner Advocate Network is. I think it's important that you say you are someone who has a loved one incarcerated in one of Utah's prisons or jails. Um, and be clear, I have someone who is in the custody of the state of Utah, a prisoner in custody of the state of Utah. That way, even if they're in an IPP jail, that's different than being a county inmate, because if you're a county inmate, then the legislature isn't really, they don't make, it's the county makes laws over that, not the state. Um, if you're really, if you're talking about writing corrections, you can say that you're part of the UPAN family. Since we don't have a membership, we don't tell families what they can and can't do, other than, you've got group rules on our Facebook group that if you break them, you might not be able to stay on the Facebook group. But I think when I write, for example, I will say, I'm Molly Prince. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've worked in the mental health, behavioral health field in the outpatient community for justice involved individuals for the past 30 years. Period. That's my first introduction. Sometimes I'll say that I'm also a co-founder of UPAN, and sometimes I don't. Because really, my next step is I have a loved one who's been incarcerated in the state of Utah for the most part of the past 24 years. And that's how I establish who I am.
So it sounds like follow-up questions to the other question about receiving responses from legislators. So Suzanne's saying that she's hasn't received responses from 4 different people that she wrote letters to. What would you recommend?
Write
Right,
it again.
Karen.
Write again, call,
Hmm.
email, whatever you got to do.
And just remember, we've got a legislative session coming up, so they are not going to respond to us between the first, the middle of January and like the end of March because they're so busy going through however many 600 bills or whatever they've got to focus on this time.
And when you go on the legislature's website and you click on a legislator's profile information, it'll whether they're in the Senate or in the House, it'll pull up their contact information here. So you got a mobile number, you've got the address, you've even got an email. So you've got 3 different ways to contact them. So for what it's worth, maybe maybe they're more responsive another way. Or sometimes, if I'm really trying to get their attention, I haven't really had to go this far, but a lot of times they're pretty active on Twitter or other social media. Sometimes if you direct message them or post them, sometimes they'll answer, or a staffer might answer, you know, but that's another way. Um, let's see if what if after multiple attempts the caseworkers never respond to us or a loved one, and he said send an email to corrections or ski apatasi. You refer to the fact that if someone calls you and says that a UPAN member wasn't nice, how do they know?
If that UPenn member told them, um, I have gotten back under Red's administration when they were more open to allowing advocates and families to directly call administrators. That's when it was happening the most, and it might be why they stopped. They stopped that because I would get calls, and they would say, you know, Mrs. Jupiter called and said she was part of UPAN and that blah, 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 blah. And then sometimes I would have to do damage control because that person acted as if they were a director of UPAN, not a family member. And so then I would have to do damage control with that. So that's how they would know. If you don't tell them that you're involved with UPAN, they're not going to know. Although a lot of people will say, Anne with UPAN suggested I write, like to ski, suggested I write you and ask you to forward this to the correct division. Or Molly with UPAN suggested I write. And now that you've had the instructions on how to write, we depend on you writing appropriate emails. So,
And it might be good to just kind of reiterate what we mean. Like if you say member, like UPAN doesn't, we don't have we don't charge memberships.
right.
The term we actually use to refer to people that are supporters of UPAN or just incarcerated families. We just call you constituents, UPAN constituents. It's the same term that UDC actually uses to refer to us as constituents. It's the same thing that, politicians refer to their supporters or their people they represent as constituents. So, um, the only people that are really have the authority to say UPAN has this position or whatever to advocate for is the UPAN directors, which are these specific people. And even then, most of the time, it's usually Molly, or somebody at the top of UPAN, so that just that we have a singular voice, just so that it's not getting lost. Because again, we don't want to have to be doing damage control because so and so said that they represent UPAN and doing this when it was just really an odd, a family member or whatever that was expressing frustration or whatever. So,
Yeah.
and even dropping UPAN's name isn't necessarily going to necessarily get you a better result anyway. So you're just better off, like what Molly was saying, just saying, look, I have an incarcerated loved one in the system, blah, 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 blah. This is what I'm trying to do. So,
Yeah.
but we're here to be as a resource and education source for the general public to help people try to navigate the system, because really in the absence of organizations like ours, I mean, we saw a need because there isn't great information out there, and it's constantly changing information. So it takes a good volunteer reactive effort to stay on top of the latest information, to constantly forge relationships, because it is a revolving door. People move up and down the chain, leave agencies, whatever, and policies are constantly changing. So it is an active effort that organizations have to put in. So, but yeah, so it's not like a paid membership dues sort of thing, or if you're part of the family network or whatever, you're basically a constituent of UPAN, to be clear.
Right. There's no staff directory of the state prison. There's their organizational chart at corrections.utah.gov at their website. There's not a staff directory. And again, they ask us to send everything to corrections@utah.gov so that they can move it to the correct division. And honestly, with as many changes in staff that they've had this past year, it's half of my email addresses that I had a couple years ago are like useless. Like they've been moved to reentry or somewhere. So anyway, that's that. And then Suzanne asked, how would I go about getting Captain your story in an IPP jail? I know that they're in USCF and CUCF, and I know that Amy Chandler, who is the founder of My Story Matters, which sponsors Captain My Story, has wanted to get them into the jails. However, she had legislative funding to help with that. And then in 2024 legislative session, that was all cut. And we've been told that Governor Spencer Cox said that they're not going to fund new full-time positions. Okay, they're not a staff member, but Cox is cutting back on state like legislative funding for state divisions, state departments, state offices. So reach out to Captain My Story, Amy Chandler, and see what IPP jails they might be in. She's got grants from other places because she does this in the community as well. It's not just for the people incarcerated. Oh, Amanda. There you go. Amanda just gave you the answer. Amanda took the course. MyStoryMatters.org. I'm trying to go down.
And Shireen, is do the AGP Restorative Justice Stakeholders Roundtable, do they have a website? I think I saw something on social media, but do you know website? I could Google it. She's talk,
Um,
she's talking about a upcoming event
yeah,
at the Capitol.
I got a text from Ronnie Wilcox of Prisoner Advocate Group with a flyer today. I just haven't had time to forward it to the directors and ask that somebody put it on the family Facebook group.
Yeah, not seeing it in my inbox. I did see something somewhere. Where did I see it?
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
if
gonna
you see
find
it
Ronnie's.
online, I could have sworn that I saw something about. I think we did share it on our Facebook group. I'd be surprised.
I am I am texting it right now to the UPAN directors just because we're in a group and it's the fastest thing I can do. Wait. Sorry, that didn't work.
Oh, maybe I was thinking about this advocacy training. Well, this is another good thing to throw out there. So this advocacy training that UPAN did, there's going to be another one done by another couple of organizations that cover different aspects of things. So NAMI Utah, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and USARA, Utah Recovers for recovery awareness. They're doing an advocacy training as well. And that's going to be on Saturday, January 24th. And that looks like a, what, 3-4 hour event. And they're providing lunch, 650 South Main Street, Suite 500, if you guys are interested in attending that.
Okay, I just think I posted it to the family group. The Adulum, Adulum Justice. I just posted that to the family group. It's not saving to my photos, but okay.
Here we go.
Okay. And then Shirene's taken Captain My Story as well. I know Carrie May is taking Captain My Story as well. Okay, Shireen, if you want to email us more information, this has just been a crazy week.
Okay, well, we're basically at the end of our time. Was there any other questions before we wrap things up? So I want to do just a quick plug for next month's meeting, which we will have Valerie Worrell. Do you want to tell us about that, Molly? About the tablet program?
Valerie is the tablet guru. Some of the incarcerated people call her the tablet queen. She's the one that loads all of the content onto the tablets that are used in USCF and CUCF, that are authorized by UDC. And so we've had it posted a couple times on the family group, but if you have specific questions about the tablet program, please get it to our email by this Thursday, because I'm compiling all of those questions so that we can get them sent to her so that she's ready with answers in February. So things like, actually, whoever brought up the law library, I'm going to ask about the law library.
Mhm.
And if she may not know because she only puts on what UDC tells her to put on. But if we ask her, then she may be able to find out when they're going to maybe have access to that. There are a lot of questions about why can't there be emails on the tablets, and that's also a UDC question, because UDC is the one that has not authorized outside emails to go outside of the facility, and a lot of that has to do with who people are contacting, or who they would be able to contact, is what they've told me. But please send all of your questions, and we'll get those to her. Like, she loads the movies that are on there. She loads all the announcements that UDC gives her, for inmates to know what's going on, things like that. And then I think in March we have, Anne, remind me who's in March.
Okay, I have to look it up real quickly. Apparently, I have zero memory.
It's the lady, Savannah, is it not Savannah?
Savannah Johnson and Alexander Martinez. So they're formerly incarcerated, who have gone on to great success. And in Alexander's case, he's compiling some resources for the people after release. and Susanna. Anyway, they just have great success stories, and they love helping people succeed after release. So they will be in March.
Okay.
We've got another question about the tablets. Everything in the prisons is the prison only. Each jail has its own administration of everything in that jail. So they load their own tablets. I'll be quiet about IPP.
Yeah, so that's a whole other topic for another time. Thank you everybody for attending tonight, and we hope we'll see you next time. Please join the Utah Family Support Group if you haven't already, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.